Whenever people talk about MCU villains, it's always the same names: Thanos, Loki, maybe Killmonger. And don't get me wrong, they are great. But what if I told you some of the most dangerous villains in the MCU are the ones nobody talks about? Not because they're weak, but because they are misunderstood, overshadowed, or just way too real. These are villains who didn't need to snap their fingers, they changed everything using strategy, pain, and psychology. And by the end of this video, you might realize the most underrated villains on this list actually did the most damage. Now, before we start, let's define what underrated really means here. I'm not talking about the strongest villains. I'm talking about the ones who were overlooked by fans, had deeper motivations than people realized, or quietly caused massive impact without getting credit. So with that in mind, let's start with number 5. Justin Hammer is probably the easiest villain to laugh at in the entire MCU. He's awkward, he tries too hard, and he's constantly living in Tony Stark's shadow. But that's exactly why people underestimate him, because if you strip away the humor, what you're left with is actually pretty dangerous. Hammer represents something very real: a powerful man with resources, influence, and a massive ego trying to prove he's better than someone else. And that combination, it's unpredictable. He partners with criminals, he pushes unstable technology, and rushes weapons development just to compete. And that's the key difference between him and Tony Stark. Tony evolves, Hammer rushes. Tony innovates and Hammer imitates. And when you have someone with money, access to military contracts, and zero patience for consequences, you don't get a genius, you get chaos. And we literally see that play out. His drones malfunction, his weapons fail, and everything spirals out of control. But imagine for a second, if even one of his ideas worked properly, Hammer wouldn't just be a joke, he'd be one of the most powerful figures in the MCU, and that's what makes him underrated, not what he did, but what he almost became. Ronan is one of those villains people remember, but don't really respect, and I think that's a mistake, because Ronan isn't just another villain trying to destroy your planet. He's driven by belief, and belief when taken to the extreme can be more dangerous than power. Ronan sees himself as a judge, someone delivering justice, not chaos, and that changes how he operates. He doesn't hesitate or doubt himself, he also doesn't question whether he's right. And when someone reaches that level of certainty, they become almost impossible to stop. Even Thanos, one of the most powerful things in the universe, doesn't fully control Ronan. Ronan uses Thanos until he doesn't really need him anymore. And that moment when he takes the Power Stone for himself, that's where you see his true character. He's not a follower, he's a fanatic, and fanatics do not negotiate. They don't compromise and they do not stop, which is why Ronan was willing to wipe out an entire civilization without a second thought. That kind of mindset is terrifying because you can't reason with it, you can't predict it, all you can do is try to survive it. Ghost might be the most misunderstood character on this list because calling her a villain doesn't even feel completely right. She's not chasing power, she's not trying to dominate anyone, she's trying to survive, and that difference matters. Her condition, phasing in and out of reality, isn't just a cool ability, it's a curse. Imagine not being able to control your own body, always in constant pain. Imagine slowly losing your connection to the physical world. That's a reality every single day, and when you live like that, your decisions change. Morality becomes flexible, right and wrong becomes secondary, because survival becomes the only thing that matters. That's what makes Ghost so compelling. Every fight she's in feels different. She's not fighting to win, she's fighting because she has to, and that desperation shows in the way she moves, the way she attacks, and the way she refuses to stop. And honestly, it makes her one of the most human villains in the MCU because deep down, the question she raises is uncomfortable. If you were in a position feeling that pain, losing yourself slowly, would you really do anything different? Alexander Pierce is dangerous in a completely different way because unlike the others, he doesn't look like a villain. He looks calm, professional, trustworthy, and that's exactly how he wins. While everyone else is focused on external threats, Pierce is already inside the system, not just inside it. He's controlling it. That's the scariest part. He didn't need to fight the Avengers, he didn't need to overpower anyone, he built a system where he didn't even have to. Project Insight wasn't just a weapon, it was control on a global scale. The ability to eliminate threats before they even act, and from his perspective, that wasn't evil, that was order, security, and peace through control. And that's what makes him so dangerous because his logic almost makes sense, almost. And the truth is, if it wasn't for Captain America in a few key moments, Pierce would have succeeded, millions of people gone, just like that, no warning, no fight, just a decision made quietly behind the scenes. And that's power, not loud and not explosive, just absolute. And then there's Zemo, no superpowers, no advanced suits, and no massive army, and yet he accomplished something no other villain did. He broke the Avengers, not physically but psychologically. Zemo understood something that every other villain missed. The Avengers aren't weak because of their enemies. They are weak because of themselves, their guilt, mistakes, and their past. And instead of attacking them head on, Zemo weaponized that. He didn't need to overpower them, he just needed to expose them. And once he did, they destroyed each other. That epic scene in the division wasn't an accident. That was Zemo's plan working perfectly. And the craziest part, he didn't even need to win a fight because by the end, the Avengers were already broken. That's what makes him the most underrated villain, not his strength, but his understanding. He did not just fight heroes, he understood them, and that's why he won. So when we talk about the most dangerous villains in the MCU, maybe it's not the ones with the most powers. Maybe it's the ones who think differently, who feel real and understand people better than they understand themselves. Because those are the villains you can't just punch your way past. Those are the ones who stay with you. And honestly, those are the ones we should be talking about more. So now I'm curious, who do you think is the most underrated MCU villain? Leave that down in the comments below.